Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's Friday Reflections on this, the 16th of May 2025. I hope you are well wherever you are tuning into this from. And in the UK, we are certainly enjoying some beautiful weather and looking forward to hopefully a wonderful weekend. Today, I would like to continue this study of this book that we were doing, a Muslim mystic community in Britain, uh, meaning in the West and for the West, which was a research done by Dr. Tayfun Atay, sorry, Dr. Tayfun Atay. And he wrote this book based on his research, which he did during the 1990s with Shaykh Nazim's community in London and also across the UK. We got to page 109, so I'm going to continue from there. He talks about Sheikh Nazim on this occasion had left the UK, and this was in early 1992. So he says, after the Sheikh's departure from London in early June 1992 marked the end of the second main phase of my fieldwork. During the third and last phase of my fieldwork, I sought to fill the gaps in the previous information I'd collected on several topics. I reduced my contacts with the groups and individuals with whom I had felt I dealt adequately, and turned my attention to other groups such as the Indo-Pakistani and English murids, and in particular some key figures I had met while the Sheikh was in London. I went to these murids' houses and had useful conversations with them regarding the history of the community in London, their difficulties at personal and intergroup levels, and their understandings of Islam. Notice understandings, plural, of Islam, Sufism, and the position of the Sheikh. Now, this is an interesting point here. Some people today talk about Islam like it's monolithic, and we all have exactly the same ideas. The reality is, as Typhoon Ate found here, and somewhat a little bit to his surprise, it would appear through the pages that we've read so far, that there are multiple understandings of Islam and different ones from the ones that he had encountered previously while he was in Turkey within the same Sufi tariqah. So within the same group, within the same religious group, within the same organization, there were already differences of understandings. Now you extrapolate from that and think how many different groups we have of Muslims around the world in different countries, different cultures, different heritages, different education levels. And you can easily see just how diverse Muslim communities are around the world. And this is why one thing, if you're a leader of an organization or a speaker on Islam, it's something to always be aware of and not speak for all Muslims. Or if you do it in such a way that you ensure that you're not suggesting that your one particular take on things is the only way that you can understand. And interestingly, this was never the way of the scholars of Islam in the past. They approached things and highlighted different particular understandings that a person can have on a number of different issues. So it's like if somebody came to them and asked for a fatwa on a particular issue, they might give a couple of different perspectives on it and say that these are equally valid. And which one makes the most sense in your situation is the one that you should go with. Not like today. You see some people on social media and they dictate to people that this is Islam, and anybody who goes against it is basically sinful. So it's something to bear in mind. Um, anyway, and the position of the Sheikh. So, however, the most significant activity that took place during this period was my working with a Turkish murid for 2 weeks. Extra expenses I'd incurred during fieldwork meant that my financial situation was difficult. I happened to talk about this problem in a gathering of the Turkish Marids. Although some of them suggested giving me a loan, I refused. Then one of them, who was a builder and decorator, offered me a job to work for him, since he needed someone to help him with his new work redecorating a house in central London. I accepted his offer partly for financial reasons, but more importantly, thinking I would have an opportunity to observe a Murid in his out of Tariqa life and get to know him better. I would be able to learn how a murid's affiliation with the order relates to his professional life. Every day, weekends included, for 2 weeks, we worked in a very hard conditions. We had our lunch together, we performed prayers and discussed many interesting matters about the relations within the community. These were matters which in different circumstances would never have been revealed easily. I was able to see the degree of his commitment to the Sheikh and how his membership in the Tariqah related to his private and professional life. I also witnessed how he felt being caught in the middle between his work and his Tariqah activities. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, again, if people are wondering, why am I reading this? It gives a different perspective because Dr. Tayfun Atay is a secular Turk coming into a Muslim community, specifically a Naqshbandi Sufi community, and seeing it from a fresh perspective. He was not someone who was religious earlier in his life before that. So he's seeing this from a fresh perspective. And not many people get that opportunity. It's something that, as a convert to Islam, I've experienced on a personal level. But I'm fully aware that there are a lot of people within communities who may not see things in that way, may not have had that opportunity. And there are things which you learn when you do, which you wouldn't see otherwise. The pressures. From the beginning, I made my position clear to the members of the community. I was a student researcher who had chosen Sufism, and particularly their Sufi order, as a research topic and came into their gatherings for the purpose of learning about their activities. So, this is another good point because you do get some people within communities, actually, it could be any community, not just this one. And if someone comes into the community from outside, they may be suspicious of them. They may think that they are, a spy or an agent or something like this. So Typhoon was very clear from the outset that he came into the community as a student researcher. He also approached the Sheikh, as we saw in the previous parts of the book that I read. And he was very clear what his intentions were and what he was doing. And as a result, he got the permission of the Sheikh because even the Sheikh could see the value of him doing so. At first, the devotees seemed to be satisfied with this explanation for my presence among them, although sometimes they revealed worries about my position as an outsider in their community. However, as time went on, they started to question the validity of what I was doing on the grounds that a person who did not commit himself wholeheartedly to the tariqah could not grasp what it really was. They argued that one could not uncover the essence of Sufism by simply observing the members of a Sufi group, what they were doing or how they were living. Instead, they went on to say one should try to experience it. To put it simply, they were suggesting that it was a vain hope that I could understand the world of Tariqa without tasting it. Briefly, they were implicitly trying to persuade me to become a disciple of the Sheikh. Here are the words of Rifat, see the section biographies in the previous chapter, when reacting to my idea of learning about Sufism and the Sufi orders by doing a research on their community. He said, "You cannot understand anything about Tariqa unless you feel it from your heart. Therefore, you should be a murid in order to understand what Tariqa is. You can see or watch us. You can talk with us. But this only gives you the surface. You cannot understand its essence. Yours, i.e., Professor Typhoon's way of learning without tasawwuf, is similar to learning how to drive a car without holding the steering wheel. You can read a lot of books on how to drive, but you still cannot know how to drive unless you do it. You have to drive the car to learn how a car goes and what driving is." This, of course, is a position that, as a devotee of the Naqshbandi Tariqa, I am very familiar with. And I would say that there's a lot of truth in that. And it's like anything. It's you could look at. It's like if you've never had butter chicken before, how can you know how it tastes? How can you know what the sensation is as you're eating it? You cannot know. You have to actually try something and to experience it. And when you experience it, you know it on a whole different level to when you know about it academically or while talking about it. However, it is also true that analyzing things academically, taking things from an impartial perspective, is also another type of learning that teaches you something, which, if you are simply a devotee within a religious organization, you may not understand or see things because you are fully within it. You are not necessarily seeing outside of that. So this is one of the reasons I'm sharing this with you all, because you can see from the outside, and those of you who are members within the Sufi order, you also know how it is from the inside. And so then you can get the both perspectives. And when you see both perspectives on something, then you will understand it with even more depth than if you only had one or the other. I will continue. Particularly in the early phases of my fieldwork, I quite often had come across similar words which implied more than they said. Mithad Hoja, for instance, made the following interesting metaphorical speech in one of our early conversations, and as a response to my saying that I'd been reading some books on Sufism in order to make better sense of it in my mind. You cannot know what sort of thing the nuptial night is unless you meet the bride in her bedroom. This, knowing about Sufism, is the same thing. You can read a lot of stuff about what the night of the nuptial night is, but you cannot know it really if you do not experience that night. In the beginning, when such pressure to become a murid was directed to me, I kept silent with a smile, which I assume implied helplessness. Later, however, I started to answer by stating that I was not yet ready, since discipleship was not at all an easy task, which could be achieved by everyone, but only some courageous and experienced persons. Finally, in the places where even these sentiments didn't work, I said, let's wait until the Sheikh comes to London. Some Marids responded in the some Marids responded to their fellows' attempts to force me to be a Murid by pointing out that only the Sheikh himself could pull me into the circle of the tariqah, since I was naturally more stubborn than an ordinary man due to my position as an academic, intellectual person. Meanwhile, I managed to develop a tactical response to the question as to whether I was a Murid by articulating the special terminology of Sufism and saying I am a Muhib rather than a Murid, i.e., one who has a certain affinity to a Sufi order rather than a member of it. Now, reading these words, I find particularly interesting because this is something which I have seen on a number of occasions. I have seen it within my tariqah when we've had guests amongst us. Also, I am friends and affiliated with some other tariqahs, and I visit other sheikhs when they come and meet, for purposes of barakah, and like having a relationship with them, getting to know them, and I believe that's important. But at the same time, when you do that, then sometimes people misunderstand and think you want to take bayah with that sheikh and become that sheikh's student. This is disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the murid or the person who's not a murid, who is among you who's not a member of your tariqah. And it's disrespecting their often good intentions that they're there for other reasons. In this particular case, these murids, these students of the sheikh, forgot that the sheikh himself had given explicit permission to the academic, Dr. Atay, to come and stay among them and to learn from them, and even personally invited him to accompany them, to accompany the sheikh on his travels around the country. He wanted Dr. Atay to see what he was doing. He gave him explicit permission. And Maulana Sheikh Nazim had instructed the murids to do everything they could to help Dr. Atay in his research. Maulana Sheikh Nazim understood this. He understood the nature of the work. He understood what he was doing and gave explicit permission. The murids, or some of them, not all of them, but some of these murids had took it upon themselves to come to their own conclusions on this and to start judging why he was there and to start suggesting that he be the same like them. And this is a dangerous tendency, not just among murids of Sufi tariqas, but among the adherents of religions in general. You tend to see this in many groups. And not just within religious communities, it can be also within political groups and others, where people want other people to be the same as them, to be on the same, not respecting the difference. This is dangerous. It is something which can lead to a lot of problems and a lot of falling out and misunderstandings. If people listen to each other, try to understand each other, why they are there, then people will develop better relations and you can have all sorts of people meeting together. And, people will be on their own level, what they're benefiting from. Like sometimes you will get Christians and Jews and they will come into a Muslim circle and they want to listen and they want to understand something. What they take away from it might be different from what the murids or the other people within that circle take away. But it is no less valuable for them. It's no less beneficial for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And this all shows a lack of adab, a lack of good manners and respect. It is very real. I mean, I have seen this behavior myself, by the way, for anybody who's questioning it. Also, it's important to note that the students or the followers of any particular religion are all going to be on different levels. So there's going to be people who are just beginning. There are going to be people who are really expert, and they're all going to be different levels of understanding. So this is something to also bear in mind as well if you are visiting any particular group. And if you get one of just the people in the audience there, or one of the murids saying things, don't necessarily assume that's what the religious leader thinks, whether that religious leader be a sheikh or a priest or a rabbi or any other leader. You have to speak to the leader and listen to the leader to know what they believe or what they're saying. But so Dr. Atay had to develop strategies to deal with this, which is unfortunate. Only in one particular situation could I not escape the pressures put upon me to become a murid, but had to comply with the communal rishis. It was just before the Sheikh arrived, when I had gone to a zikr gathering of the Indo-Pakistani murids in Slough. The zikr was led by Sheikh Ali, one of those two prominent Arab murids. As he always did, Sheikh Ali first made a general speech and explained to the audience why the zikr was important in Islam, touching also on the issue of the Sufi understanding of Islam and the hostility of the Wahhabis to Sufism. He also pointed out after the zikr that there would be a bay'ah ceremony. He specified that anyone within the audience who wanted to become a murid would then ask to take the bay'ah or bay'at from him. After the performance, Sheikh Ali talked more on the virtues of Sufi Islam and zikr. Then he stood up and looking around him asked who wants to take bayat. Now, bayat or bayat, depending on which language we're using, means to pledge your allegiance to the sheikh or to the Sufi order or to the leader. This is how a person becomes a student of the sheikh. They take bayat with the sheikh. At that moment, like everyone else, I was moving towards him. Suddenly, he turned his face towards me and said, "Come, do you want to take bayat?" I was struck at this unexpected call. Everything moved so fast that I was unable to say anything. In 1 second, he held my hand, and everyone started to put their hands on ours. Sheikh Ali initiated the ceremony by chanting the Shahada, the proclamation of faith, phrase by phrase, repeated by the audience, and continued with the other phrases used in the bayat ceremony. Thus, I was given bayat, that is, I was supposed to be initiated into the Naqshbandi community of Shaykh Nazim as a murid. In fact, I'd been compelled to behave in a particular way coherent with what the others in the setting had expected. In a sense, the setting exerted its power on me. Now, I think it's unfortunate because the thing is, I mean, I'm someone who has took bayat with Sufi Abdullah and renewed my bayat with Maulana Sheikh Mohammed Adil. I am someone that's important for me, and I see the value in it. But it's not right to compel anybody or coerce them into doing that, no matter how well intentioned you may be. And it loses its value. For me, it has value because I mean it. If I renew my bayah anytime and join in that, it means something to me. It has value for me. It strengthens me. It spiritually enriches me. But if you are there and you're there as an observer, or you just went to listen to the talk of the Sheikh, but you're not a student of the Sheikh, imagine how that must feel. Imagine if you were at a Christian ceremony and everyone was getting baptized, and then you were pressured to get baptized. It's wholly inappropriate. Thus, I was given bayah, that is, I was supposed to be initiated into the Naqshbandi community as a murid. Okay, I read that paragraph. For Sheikh Ali, my compliance provided him with a great asset to use on our later occasions. In some secret meetings, he introduced me as follows. This brother came from London University. He is doing a PhD in Islamic studies, his own label for my subject study. He has a very good heart. After we joined one or two of our meetings, he put out his hand first to take bayat. You see, so he was using him as in this way, which is again wholly inappropriate. And it goes against a lot of things that are taught within our tariqah about humility, about respecting people. Um, but unfortunately, I mean, I've seen this in person. I've seen people do similar things to this. Another time, he expressed his views about me in his dialogue with a young Turkish murid who was one of the closest to me in the tariqah. I was also present while they were talking. His words also revealed the extent of hidden transcripts developed regarding me among the members of the community. He said that when I had first informed him about my position as a Turk, studying for a PhD in Islamic studies in London University, he had mistrusted me and thought I might be a spy who would come to London to get information about the activities of Shaykh Nazim. Later, however, he saw my face and was convinced that I was a person of good heart. His confidence in me grew when he first put my hand in his to take bayat. He asserted from then I had forgotten my PhD when I needed to intervene at this point and said that I was continuing my PhD study. He laughed and said, "No, it is just secondary, secondary." I mean, I have seen things like this and it's disheartening. And especially in this particular case, I mean, if this was Sheikh Ali, if he was like a sheikh for a group within the Tariqa and he did this, it's just, it's wholly inappropriate. And as a sheikh, you're someone who's supposed to set the example. You're not someone who should be taking advantage of people in this way and misrepresenting them. I always, as anybody who's looked at my work must probably realize, I hope you do anyway, I care about honesty and reflecting things as closely to the truth as I'm able to do. It would be very easy for me to just run my mouth off and say all sorts of things. And I see people on YouTube, they do this sort of thing, and also on Instagram and other social media. But I try to be factual. I try to be accurate, even if it goes against what I personally believe, but I try to be accurate. This is important. Truthfulness is actually close to godliness because, you know, one of God's names is Al-Haq. And if you are someone who's getting close to God and being a better human being, a more God conscious person, you should be someone who's truthful. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was known for his truthfulness and his trustworthiness. So we too should be people, if we are following his way, who are at least striving towards truthfulness and trustworthiness. Whoever is with us, whether they share our faith or have other beliefs, should feel safe amongst us, safe from our hands, safe from our activities, and know that they're in safe hands. Um, how many of us can say that? I'll leave you on that thought. May Allah bless you all. I pray you all enjoy the rest of today, Jummah Mubarak, and have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.